A boy crawled across the ground. He grabbed the body of a monster and ate it. He kept reminding himself to keep eating even though it tasted disgusting and shameful. He forced himself to continue because he believed that eating it was the only way he could change. Not long before this, the same boy had been treated like a punching bag because of his weight. Others blamed him for making life harder with his sweaty smell. The boy, Maruyama Nazoru, begged for them to stop. They mocked him by calling him an orphan and a fat kid. Nazoru thought their words were cruel. When one of them raised a fist to hit him, a man named Takashi stepped in and stopped it. He warned them to leave his children alone. What angered him the most was hearing them insult Nazoru for being both overweight and parentless. The bullies left with bitter expressions. On the way home, Takashi asked if it was right to let the bullies go. Nazoru accepted it, since what they said about him being fat and an orphan was true. Takashi told him that appearances did not matter, because what was most important was the kindness of a person's heart. He knew how caring Nazoru was and believed he did not deserve such treatment. Takashi was the director of the orphanage, which had once belonged to his parents. He had taken Nazoru in when the boy lost his family at a young age, and he was also raising other children with the same loss. To them, he was like a father. When they returned, a girl named Tsurugi greeted them. She quickly noticed the small cuts on Nazoru's face and understood he had been bullied again. Nazoru worried that her hands would get dirty from touching him, but she misunderstood and thought he was calling her dirty instead. During their lighthearted chatter, a large magic circle formed beneath their feet. Everyone was pulled into it and vanished from the orphanage porch. Moments later, they found themselves inside a grand hall with bright chandeliers and tall decorated walls. Takashi quickly checked on the children to see if they were safe, while Nazoru tried to understand where they had ended up. An elderly man appeared and apologized for the sudden summoning. He introduced himself as Reje Koning III, king of the kingdom of Jumogus. He thanked them for arriving from another world and explained that their strength was needed. He asked them to listen even if the request came suddenly. The king revealed that demon lords were causing chaos in their land, and that only the summoned ones could help restore peace. Nazoru realized this place felt like the worlds he had seen in anime, where people could rise as heroes. He silently wished he could become strong like Takashi. To everyone's surprise, Takashi refused. He explained that most of those with him were only children and asked instead for them to be returned home. Soon after, a young girl stepped forward and apologized. She introduced herself as Philia Koning, daughter of the king. She admitted that while they had succeeded in summoning them to this world, there was no known way to send them back to where they came from. Takashi complained about being suddenly dragged into problems that were not theirs. Philia apologized and explained that they did not even have enough power to decide who was summoned. This made Tsurugi realize they had only been chosen by chance. Philia then explained further that within every demon lord rested an orb filled with mana. Whoever claimed this orb could have a wish granted. Tsurugi grew angry at the thought and asked if the people of this world expected children like them to carry such a burden. Philia said that was never their plan. She explained that those summoned to their world were given special powers, but most of these powers stayed hidden. Abilities awakened only after the age of 15, and until then, the children would remain under the castle's care. This meant that only Takashi, Tsurugi, and Nazoru were able to fight. The king was pleased that they finally understood, and he selfishly declared that it was time to check their classes. Takashi tried to stop him, but the king already forced open their status windows. Nazoru's class appeared as Glutton, something he could hardly believe. Takashi's class was Hot Blood, and even he had no idea what it meant. Tsurugi, however, received the strongest reaction. Her class was revealed as Sword Saint. The king shouted that this title could change the entire war. His behavior toward Tsurugi immediately shifted, and he treated her with great importance, even inviting her to join him for a meal. Philia also encouraged the children to follow. Everyone looked forward to tasting food from another world. Out of the confusion, Takashi and Nazoru were left behind. Nazoru advised Takashi that they should at least try to understand the situation since they were still new to this world. Takashi agreed and suggested that they eat as much as they could first. Before they could enter the dining hall, the king stopped them. He explained that he had never seen the classes called Glutton and Hot Blood before. After saying this, he insisted that one thing needed to be confirmed. In the next moment, a guard struck them, and they both lost consciousness. Nazoru woke up later to the sound of Takashi calling out to him. He sat up slowly while Takashi looked relieved that his friend was unharmed. Nazoru asked what had happened, but Takashi had no answer. The only thing he knew was that they were now standing in front of monsters, which made it clear they had been thrown into a dangerous place. Nazoru was stunned by the sight, but Takashi quickly realized they were inside an arena. The king appeared again and ordered them to fight the monsters. Both were shocked, but the king explained it was a test of their strange powers. He reminded them that their classes had never been recorded and demanded that they defeat the creatures to prove they were worthy of being called heroes. Nazoru thought it was too much to expect from them, but the king only gave a short apology before opening a large gate. From it, a slime monster slid into the arena. Nazoru felt unprepared to face such a creature, but Takashi stepped forward to protect him. He told Nazoru to stay back and then face the slime. The monster struck first, yet Takashi dodged with ease. He waited for the right moment, then delivered a strong punch that defeated the slime in a single blow. Takashi proudly declared that the monsters of this world were not as threatening as they seemed, and asked the king if the trial was finished so they could return to the children. The king, however, remained silent. Takashi then turned to Nazoru and suggested they leave on their own, but before they could move, another monster suddenly appeared behind Nazoru. Takashi reacted quickly, pushing him out of danger, but he himself was struck hard by the attack. The force sent him flying across the arena, crashing to the ground. Nazoru rushed to his side, worried for his life, but Takashi was too weak to answer clearly. Nazoru shouted for the king to heal Takashi, warning that he would die without help. The king ignored his plea. Meanwhile, the new monster continued to attack, and Nazoru had no choice but to dodge clumsily, his body barely keeping up. The king mocked them, saying all he saw was a man who had fallen to a simple orc and a boy who could only run away. To him, they were worthless. Yet even as he insulted them, the king laughed with amusement. Watching Nazoru struggle made the battle entertaining in his eyes. He admitted that monster fights had grown dull, but when human lives were involved, the spectacle became exciting. At that moment, Nazoru finally understood the king's cruel nature. The man on the throne saw them not as heroes, but as toys meant for his twisted amusement. The orc swung its wooden club and Nazoru tried to dodge, but his left leg was struck. In the end, no matter where he went, he could not escape the truth. He could only watch Takashi lying on the ground, breathing heavily. He could not believe that he had failed to protect someone so important to him. At that moment, he noticed that he had fallen into something wet and slimy. When he looked around, he realized he had landed in front of the slime's corpse. A glowing status window appeared, showing that the slime was a target for consumption, and asking if Nazoru would eat it. Reading those words made him understand that his class was activating. He questioned if he should really consume the slime. Before he could decide, the orc attacked again, forcing Nazoru to step back. The creature now stood between him and the slime's body. Feeling trapped, Nazoru realized he had no choice left. He rushed past the orc and grabbed the slime's eyeball. He reminded himself that he could no longer hesitate or remain weak. Forcing himself forward, he bit into the slime's eyeball, fighting against the urge to vomit. He pushed himself to eat more. The orc approached, but Nazoru did not stop. Even though his body looked pitiful, he kept devouring the slime. He repeated to himself that he had to continue, that he had to change. At that moment, the system confirmed that Nazoru had consumed the slime and taken its existence into himself. But before he could react, the orc swung its heavy club down on his head, crushing it into a mess. From a distance, the king cheered with delight at the sight, laughing as Nazoru's body was destroyed. His laughter quickly stopped when he noticed the puddle changing shape into something new. From it, Nazoru appeared, realizing that he had turned into a slime. The king was stunned when he saw that Nazoru had gained the power of the monster he had eaten. Even with this shocking display, the king still called him unclean and ordered the orcs to keep fighting, claiming the battle was not yet finished. The monster charged at Nazoru again, but Takashi stood up and blocked the orc's attack. Takashi admired Nazoru's strength, but knowing his own body was failing, he urged Nazoru to escape through a nearby drain. Nazoru resisted, unwilling to leave his friend behind, yet Takashi insisted that staying meant they would both die. He reminded Nazoru that the king would destroy the other children if they turned out to have weak or unwanted classes. Nazoru felt powerless on his own, but Takashi gave him one final request. He asked Nazoru to protect Tsurugi and the others, apologizing for forcing such a heavy responsibility on him while trusting him completely. Panicking, the king shouted for the orcs to kill both Takashi and Nazoru immediately, and to make sure no one learned about his secret escape path. Takashi continued to hold the monster back, giving Nazoru no choice but to flee. With a cry of determination, Nazoru slid into the drainage system. Down in the sewers, he felt crushed by the thought that he was still the same weak Nazoru even in this strange new world. He was neither a hero nor a savior. Yet in that dark place, his heart grew stronger. He swore that he would kill the king and rescue the others no matter what stood in his way. He could not stop himself from shouting in frustration. He cried because Takashi had died only to save him. Takashi had truly sworn to protect everyone. At that moment, a status window appeared and showed Nazoru that a class upgrade was available for Glutton. Yet with his current body structure, he could not keep the class. To continue holding it, the system asked if he wanted to change his body structure. Nazoru understood that his form would change, but his strength would remain. Since power was the only thing that mattered to him, he agreed. The system confirmed his choice, and right away Nazoru felt sharp pain moving through his body. He screamed loudly as his body began to reshape. His skin and flesh felt like they were burning, and he kept crying out until he could hardly breathe. He collapsed onto the floor but rolled toward the sewer water. As his mind faded into darkness, the system confirmed that his class had ranked up and that Glutton had evolved into Demon Devourer. Before long, Nazoru was carried out of the sewers. He opened his eyes and panicked as he remembered blacking out. But then he froze when he saw his reflection in the water. His face looked sharper and his body had become stronger and more built. Even so, he worried about where he had ended up. He remembered how Takashi had given his life for him and had passed on the duty to protect everyone. He knew he could not waste the life that had been saved. His first task was to escape the castle, but the only path he could see was a drain pipe. Nazoru shifted into a slime form and crawled through the pipe. The passage was completely dark and he had no idea which direction would lead him out. Suddenly he noticed a faint light and thought it might be the exit. When he crawled out of the pipe, he found himself in an underground prison filled with skeletons and prisoners who were barely alive. He could not believe he had ended up back at the castle, and even worse, in such a strange and terrible place. Before he could leave, a dying old man spoke, surprised that someone unusual had managed to slip inside the prisons. Nazoru was shocked to see a corpse move its mouth, but then realized the man was still alive. The old man asked who he was, but Nazoru admitted he had no name because he was treated only as a slave. Nazoru was stunned to learn slavery existed in this world. The old man called him strange and wondered if slaves were really so rare to him. Thinking about the king, Nazoru began to wonder what kind of kingdom this truly was. If he were in Takashi's place, he questioned what he should do next. Just then, he noticed a set of keys hanging on the nearby wall. He unlocked the prison cell and asked the old man if he could still move. The man could not believe he had the chance to escape before his last breath. At that moment, a painful groan echoed from deeper inside the cells. Nazoru asked if someone else was trapped there, but the old man warned him not to approach. Nazoru, however, could not abandon someone suffering, so he ran deeper into the prison. There he found a girl with long ears and plants were growing out of her body. The sight shocked him. The old man explained that it was a cannibal plant, a monster that attached itself to the girl's neck and lived as a parasite. She had been turned into an experiment, forced to serve as a host. The old man said the plant would fiercely protect her by attacking anyone who came close. Nazoru grew angry and asked why anyone would do such cruel experiments. The man answered that it was either for military power or simply for the king's amusement. Furious, Nazoru stepped into the cell. The cannibal plant quickly noticed him, making him hesitate, but the old man told him not to hold back since his slime body could not be harmed easily. Nazoru charged forward, grabbed the plant, and tried to rip it off, but the monster bit at him in return. Shocked, he slammed it against the floor. Then he used his slime body to cover and suffocate it until it stopped moving and finally died. When Nazoru tried to pull the plant off the girl, she screamed in pain. He realized the roots had already dug deep inside her body, and tearing them out would only cause more suffering. The girl begged him to kill her instead. She explained that the plant would keep regenerating as long as the roots stayed inside her. Living like that was unbearable, and she said she would rather die than continue enduring the agony. When Nazoru asked how he could completely remove the roots, the system confirmed that the cannibal plant was a valid target for consumption. Nazoru was shocked and carefully examined the unconscious monster plant. He wondered if he could really consume it in his slime form. The system quickly confirmed that he could. This surprised him because it felt like the system was reading his thoughts. Still, he only knew one method for a slime to consume something. The system then explained that a slime only needed to touch its target to digest and absorb it. Grateful for the answer, Nazoru prepared himself. He turned to the girl and promised that he could save her. He asked her to trust her life to him, and she agreed, though she also wished for death if his attempt failed. Nazoru swore to succeed no matter what. He reminded himself that he was a slime and pressed against her neck, slipping into her body where the monster's roots were buried. Slowly, he slid deeper and wrapped his slime body around the twisted roots inside her. He felt progress as he spread further, covering every root he could detect. At the same time, he wrapped her body in a soothing warmth to lessen her pain. Soon, the roots vanished from her face and body. The system confirmed that the cannibal plant had been fully consumed. The girl's body relaxed and she quickly fell into deep sleep. The old man who had been watching could not believe the power he had witnessed. Yet he warned Nazoru that staying longer would bring danger. He feared the guards might come, so he checked the door. The moment he looked outside, he froze. Nazoru realized his earlier movements had been too noisy, and he had not considered the risk of guards hearing. The girl would not wake up soon, and if the guards found them like this, they would be in serious trouble. He tried to call to the old man, but when the man turned around, a sword was already driven into his chest. A guard stood behind him, demanding to know if Nazoru was part of the prison break. The guard asked who he was. and then finished off the old man without hesitation. Furious, Nazoru questioned his actions, but the guard mocked him and asked the same in return. Stepping on the old man's lifeless body, the guard pressed for answers, wanting to know who Nazoru was and how he had entered. Nazoru gave no reply. Seeing his silence, the guard raised his sword and declared that he would simply kill him. Nazoru realized that the worst thing he feared had actually happened to him. The guard rushed at him with the intent to kill. He swung his weapon in a wide slash, thinking he had already won. But to his shock, Nazoru's wounds healed right away. The guard froze in surprise and demanded to know what Nazoru really was. Noticing the guard's confusion, Nazoru saw an opening. He reminded himself not to hesitate and charged forward, landing a punch straight on the guard's face. For a moment, he felt relieved that it worked. The guard, however, only laughed and mocked him, saying such a weak punch was useless, then wiped the slime from his face. Nazoru quickly understood that his slime fist alone was not strong enough. The guard admitted it was his first time seeing a humanoid slime. He said the only way to defeat one was to smash the slime core hidden inside its body. Nazoru instantly realized his chest held his weak point. The guard sneered, asking if he had just figured that out. He promised to cut Nazoru open and search for the core himself. Nazoru scrambled to dodge the guard's attacks, forced to stay on the defensive. The guard pressed on and questioned why he was struggling so much. With no other choice, Nazoru kept retreating as the strikes continued. At last, the guard swung down with a vertical slash that tore through Nazoru's body. By luck alone, the blade missed the core by only the smallest margin. Nazoru realized he could not stay on the defensive any longer. Sharp teeth started to grow out of his hand, shocking the guard. Nazoru decided to test the strange power he had just gained. The guard quickly understood that Nazoru was not an ordinary slime. Nazoru believed things might turn in his favor if he combined the powers of the slime with the cannibal plant. He chose to go on the attack. The guard, however, regained focus and aimed at Nazoru's chest. He tried to pierce him, but Nazoru let go of his humanoid form and dropped to the ground with a wet plop. Seeing the guard off balance, Nazoru returned to his humanoid shape, his hand still carrying the plant's sharp teeth, and grabbed the guard's neck. Even while in pain, the guard managed to raise his arm and swing his sword. He sliced Nazoru's hand, freeing himself from the grip. Nazoru noticed he had only managed to land a shallow wound. Angered, the guard prepared another strike. Just as Nazoru thought his life was about to end, the guard suddenly dropped his sword and fell to his knees. His face twisted as the holes on his neck twitched and stretched open. Nazoru then realized his earlier attack had paralyzed the man. The guard tried to fight against it, but his body collapsed to the ground, eyes wide open before going still. Nazoru did not want to believe it, yet he knew the guard had just died. His chest tightened, his nerves dulled, and the truth weighed on him. He had killed someone. Before despair consumed him, a voice called out. The girl who had been taken over by the cannibal plant earlier had regained her consciousness. Nazoru felt relief seeing her awake again. But when her eyes landed on his hand, she trembled and asked if it was the cannibal plant. Her face showed the deep fear of someone who had not yet escaped past trauma. The girl looked at Nazoru with doubt after seeing the cannibal plant on his hand and the corpses scattered around. She soon understood, however, as Nazoru explained what had happened and how his ability worked. She learned that he had copied the power of the monster plant after absorbing it. Nazoru appreciated how quickly she understood the situation. The girl realized then that he had been the one who saved her, and she showed her gratitude while also apologizing for being rude earlier. Nazoru brushed it off as nothing important and introduced himself. Afterward, she introduced herself as Libra and thanked him again for rescuing her from such a terrible fate. She promised to repay him in any way she could, though Nazoru felt that was unnecessary. When Libra touched his hand, she recognized the warm presence she had felt before. Even so, she had already suspected that he was not from her world, since his powers worked in such an unusual way. To her, abilities like his usually belonged to people who came from outside their land. Nazoru explained that his gift allowed him to copy the powers of whatever he consumed. At first it was known as gluttony, but it had since evolved into something greater called Demon Eater. Libra could not recall reading about such a class in any record, yet she found it fascinating. Nazoru admitted he did not completely understand it himself and wondered if her thoughts about it were correct. For the moment, he suggested they leave the castle before it became too late. However, Libra held on to him and insisted that they visit a certain place first, claiming it could help them escape. They soon reached an area that looked like a garbage dump. Nazoru noticed the broken ceiling above, which appeared to be a possible exit. It was high up, but with his current strength, he believed he could reach it. While observing the area, he heard rustling and turned to find Libra putting on gear she had retrieved. Though it surprised him at first, she explained that these were her belongings that had been taken earlier. She even gave him something to wear so he could cover himself. Together, they began their escape. Nazoru climbed up to the broken ceiling first and then pulled Libra after him. Although it was difficult, they managed to get out. Libra felt relieved but soon noticed Nazoru staring quietly at the castle. In his heart, he apologized to Takashi for not being strong enough at that moment. Yet he silently vowed that one day he would return, far stronger, and rescue everyone. Meanwhile, Tsurugi and the other children enjoyed their dinner. The food was unlike anything they had ever seen or tasted before. While the others ate happily, Tsurugi only stared at the dishes in silence. She said she was about to eat, but she still hesitated. At that moment, the king entered and asked if everyone was enjoying the meal. Tsurugi suddenly stood up and called out to him. Concerned, the king asked what was wrong. She explained that Takashi and Nazoru had not returned yet. The king asked if she was truly searching for those two. Tsurugi wondered if he knew something about them. The king answered firmly, saying the two men had already set out on a journey to defeat the Demon King. Tsurugi struggled to believe what she had just heard. The king added that their older brother had left a message. Takashi had asked the king to care for the children because they could not be placed in danger. The children cheered for their brave brothers. Even if the mission sounded risky, they thought it was amazing. Tsurugi, however, felt uneasy, since they had only just arrived in this new world. The king tried to ease her worries by saying he had given the two powerful equipment and plenty of supplies. For now, he told Tsurugi to focus on her own training so she could support her brothers one day. After that, he left her in confusion. When the king stepped out of the dining hall, someone appeared suddenly. The figure asked if he had found the culprits. A masked man reported that the prison had been raided but no trace of the attackers remained. The king then gave a sharp order to release wanted posters and hunt down the humanoid slime. As he dried his clothes, Nazoru felt thankful that he finally made it out of the capital safely. He asked if Libra was ready. Libra, with her wet and see-through clothes, said she needed more time to finish drying her clothes. Nazoru turned red and looked away. He suggested that they should travel as far as possible while the night still covered them. While they walked, he asked if her backpack was heavy and offered to carry it. She said she could handle it on her own. Nazoru then thought about whether it was all right for her not to return home. He wondered if her family might be waiting and worried about her. He warned her that staying with him could be dangerous. Libra explained that she had already devoted her life to him and that she had no family left to worry about her. As long as he allowed it, she would remain at his side. Nazoru accepted this, but deep inside he felt uneasy. Libra wanted to know why Nazoru left the king's side. Since he had not explained it properly before, he told her everything that happened. After sharing his story, he promised himself to grow stronger and save everyone. Still, he questioned if he could do it all alone. Libra then suggested they should hunt monsters. She believed that with his ability, Demon Eater, consuming more monsters might be the answer. Nazoru asked if it was that simple to find them. Libra pointed toward the woods nearby, saying monsters might live there. The place was close to the capital, so monsters did not often appear, but out in the wild they usually hid and waited. Nazoru stayed silent for a moment before agreeing to enter the forest. Later in the woods, a group of horned rabbits attacked Nazoru. He struggled against their speed and quick movements, but in the end they managed to trap the rabbits in one spot. Nazoru used this chance to release his power called Demon Eater. A mouth appeared on the palm of his hand and tried to bite one of the horned rabbits. To his surprise, the rabbit dodged and jumped onto his arm. It ran quickly up his arm and then launched itself like a missile. The strike pierced through the strange mouth and even hit the tree behind him. Nazoru felt relieved that he had slime powers, because without them he might have fallen like the tree. He realized the fight was far more dangerous than he expected. Libra agreed, reminding him that they were dealing with monsters after all. Hidden in the darkness of a nearby cave, another monster was already watching them. Nazoru grew worried that they might end up being the ones hunted instead. Libra suggested they go after something smaller, and Nazoru agreed with that plan. They sneaked up behind a horned rabbit that was quietly drinking water from the river. Since it had not noticed them yet, Nazoru turned his hands into slime and grabbed it. He managed to pin the rabbit down and smother it by wrapping his slime around its body. When the creature finally died, the system confirmed it as a valid target for consumption. Libra felt relieved that Nazoru had finally succeeded and urged him to consume it right away. Nazoru thought the method felt unfair, but at least he had managed to defeat one. Suddenly, a loud shriek echoed nearby. Both of them froze, realizing it sounded like the cry of a horned rabbit. A moment later, a burning creature was thrown onto the ground near them. It was the very same horned rabbit they had been chasing earlier. Nazoru sensed that something worse was approaching. A huge beast stepped out of the thick woods, its body burning and covered in flames. It looked like a giant boar, and its presence shook the forest. Nazoru stood shocked as he tried to understand what kind of monster had just appeared before them. He and Libra froze in place. He could not believe they had run into something dangerous. Still, if he managed to defeat it and steal its powers, he would have a chance to grow stronger. He made Libra move to a safe spot while he prepared himself. Nazoru slowly brought out his plant ability as he walked closer to the monster. It would take time for the parasite to grow, but if he bound it with the plant's power, he might win. He leaped over the monster and placed his hand on its back. The attack worked, and the creature felt pain, then rammed him with force. Nazoru crashed against a nearby tree, but his slime body kept him safe. The parasite had already taken root, and he only needed to hold out until the monster weakened. The beast charged again and sank its fangs into him. Even while pierced, Nazoru tried to endure. If the fangs struck his slime core, he would have died instantly. He noticed the plant parasite budding on the monster's back, yet the creature still fought with wild strength. Nazoru thought he only needed to last a little longer. Suddenly, flames burst from the monster's body. Its fire grew stronger and burned away the parasitic plant. Realizing his plant power failed, Nazoru turned to his slime ability. Just as he had done with the rabbit before, he tried to suffocate the boar monster. He wrapped his slime body around its mouth and nose, hoping to block its air. At first the monster struggled, and Nazoru believed his plan was working. But the boar released even greater flames. It tried to boil his slime body and turn him into steam. Seeing the danger, Nazoru pulled back and created distance. The monster stood unharmed despite everything he had done. Just when Nazoru felt hopeless because his powers were not working against the monster, Libra appeared. She told him to eat the rabbit monster she had thrown toward him. It was the same rabbit he had killed earlier, and he had no choice but to rely on its powers. Before he could act, the rabbit was struck in midair by a fireball and burned to ashes. That was the last chance Nazoru could use, but it was already gone. Suddenly, he felt the heat rising and saw the boar monster forming more fireballs. It then released them in every direction. Nazoru thought the enemy was far too strong for them and believed retreat was the only option, but he could not move away because of the burning heat. To make things worse, the monster spread its flames in a wide circle to trap him inside. Nazoru realized that every path of escape had already been closed off. Nazoru realized that his powers did not work on the flaming boar. He had also missed the chance to gain the power of the rabbit. The boar began to launch fireballs at him, and although he dodged most of them, some still hit and burned his skin. He knew he could not keep running and needed to find a way to escape. Then a necklace suddenly dropped in front of him. Libra pointed out that it was made from a griffin's claw and urged him to use his demon eater ability on it. Hearing that it came from a griffin gave Nazoru a spark of hope, and he felt grateful to Libra. He quickly grabbed the necklace and bit into the claw. To Libra's shock, he chewed on the hard claw of a high-speed griffin as if it were a simple snack. The flaming boar rushed toward him, but at that moment the system confirmed that he had consumed a griffin and could now wield its power. Sharp claws grew from his hands and he faced the charging beast with determination. He slashed the monster with swift strikes and the boar collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Its flame slowly faded, and the creature finally died in its own pool of blood. Nazoru, who had changed his form, could not believe the strength he had just gained. Libra rushed to him and praised how he brought down the boar with a single strike using the griffin's power. Nazoru thanked her for helping him earlier. With the griffin's power in his grasp, Libra pointed out that he no longer needed to eat the boar to gain its abilities. Nazoru agreed, but in that moment his transformation faded and the power vanished. He wondered what was happening, and even Libra looked puzzled. He was no longer able to transform back. The system soon revealed that the griffin's power had already expired. To fully control the griffin's abilities, Nazoru needed its magic essence. This essence was the inner energy carried inside a monster's body. Nazoru realized he had not taken in enough of the griffin to keep its power, so what he used earlier was only temporary. Libra was unsettled when he said he could not use the griffin's strength anymore, and Nazoru noticed the necklace meant something to her. She brushed it off, and although he apologized, she told him not to worry about it. What mattered more was whether he would consume the boar. With the monster's huge size, Nazoru shifted into his slime form to devour it completely. After consuming the boar, he changed into a standing boar-like form covered in flames for fur. Libra was amazed and said he looked like a fire boar. What impressed her more was that Nazoru could still use his slime powers at the same time. From then on, she called him a fire slime. Suddenly, Nazoru's head was cut off. Libra was in a panic, unsure if he was still alive. A woman then walked forward and realized that Nazoru was nothing more than a strange monster. Still, none of that mattered to her, because what she truly wanted was his magic essence. Nazoru quickly returned to his normal form and wondered who the woman was. He had not sensed her presence until the moment she attacked. If he had not been in his slime form at that time, he would have already been dead. Meanwhile, Libra shook with fear and urged that they should run. Nazoru grew puzzled and tried to understand what was wrong. Her legs trembled as she explained that the woman standing before them was the sworn enemy of humanity, a demon. This demon was known as Sarah Douglas. Upon learning her true identity, Nazoru felt cold sweat run down his face. Sarah said she had no time to waste and that she would take Nazoru's magic essence for herself. Libra quickly told him to cover his mouth and nose before she released a smoke screen. The thick smoke filled the area as Libra pulled Nazoru so they could escape together. Even while blinded, Sarah shouted that she would not let them get away. Libra and Nazoru ran as far as they could. Nazoru was still confused, but when he saw how desperately Libra was running, he understood that the woman chasing them was truly dangerous. Suddenly, Libra tripped on a stone and fell hard to the ground. Nazoru rushed to her side. She panicked and twisted her ankle in the fall. He noticed she had serious injuries, and it was clear she would not be able to run any farther with her legs in that state. Looking around, he searched for a safe place where they could hide. Nazoru discovered a cave and chose to hide there with Libra. Inside, he noticed that she looked pale, but she said she would feel better after resting for a while. She reminded him that he came from another world, which was why he did not know what demons were. In this world, humans and demons had been at war. Elves like her rarely joined the fight, while dwarves usually worked with humans. The beastmen, however, often sided with the demons. There were 5 major races in total, and this was the first time Nazoru had heard about them. The beastmen's cooperation was not true loyalty, since they were almost under the demons' control. At the very top stood the Demon King, the ruler of all demons. Hearing that name made Nazoru break into a cold sweat. Libra explained that demons were so powerful that even royal knights and high wizards could not stand against them. Her trembling showed how serious it was, which made Nazoru wonder if demons were really that terrifying. Still, he remembered how the demon they met earlier looked as if she had just been defeated. Libra also thought it was strange, because battles usually stayed near the border. She wondered why one had appeared so close to the royal capital. Nazoru believed it did not make sense, but one thing was clear. Meeting demons usually meant death. For the moment, he suggested that they wait quietly. Libra felt sorry for getting injured. Suddenly, a sharp noise came from the dark and someone stepped into the cave. It was the same female demon. She looked relieved to see them and staggered forward before collapsing right in front of Nazoru. With weak words, she asked them to share some of their essence. The request left Nazoru completely confused. She begged them to share at least a little, but Nazoru only felt confused. Libra told him this was the best chance to escape while the demon was drained of energy. Yet Nazoru stayed frozen in place, unable to move. Libra pulled his hand and reminded him not to get mixed up with demons since they were dangerous. She explained that a demon's power was far too strong for them to handle. Nazoru agreed, but the phrase immense power stirred something inside him, and he began to mumble strange words. Libra felt uneasy and broke into a cold sweat. Right in front of Nazoru stood a being filled with overwhelming strength. Instead of running, he slowly walked toward the worn-out demon while whispering about taking its power. In his mind, if he gained such strength, he could save everyone and finally defeat the king. The thought made him tremble with hunger, as if the power itself was a feast placed before him. Libra quickly held him back, worried about his strange behavior. Nazoru blinked and came to his senses, admitting that an odd thought had suddenly flashed in his head. Libra asked if he was all right since he no longer acted like himself. He claimed something strange had crossed his mind, then quietly shifted his gaze back to the weakened demon. He wondered if they really should avoid getting involved with her. But as he looked at the demon, another memory surfaced. He remembered Takashi from the past. Once, Nazoru had been attacked by a stray cat. He cried until Takashi rushed to protect him. The cat was not strong, but it was covered in wounds. Takashi decided to take it in and care for it until it healed. Nazoru had worried the cat might be dangerous, that feeding it would cost more, and that Tsurugi would get angry. But Takashi simply said he could not abandon the weak. He told Nazoru that if people abandoned those who were helpless, then no one would help him when his own time of weakness came. Nazoru's thoughts were suddenly cut short when Libra urged her to leave the place before the demon woke up. But Nazoru had already made a decision. She told Libra that she could not just walk away from the situation. She had chosen to help the demon. This surprised Libra, who remembered how the demon had almost killed them. She feared the demon might try to finish them once she woke. To her, it felt unreasonable to give help to something that they could barely face. Nazoru understood that worry. She even thought about the idea of eating the demon to take its power, which could be used to protect everyone. But deep inside, she knew it was not the right path. If she did such a thing, she would never be able to smile honestly when she met her friends again. She could not simply turn her back on someone who was suffering. Hearing this made Libra think of the time Nazoru had saved her life when she had already accepted death. That was who Nazoru was, and it was the reason Libra was still alive and standing. She admitted that it would be risky, but she decided to join Nazoru in helping the demon as soon as they could. At that moment, the demon's lips formed a faint smile. Even though they said that, Nazoru wondered what he should do to help a demon. Libra remembered that the demon had asked to share some magic essence. Nazoru kept thinking about how he could give that. For the moment, he chose to hold her still. Then the demon grabbed his arm tightly and demanded one arm. She said that one arm would be enough. She explained that she could gain magic essence if she ate his arm. Shocked by her words, Libra urged Nazoru to leave the demon and escape, but the demon had no plan of letting them go. Even in her weakened state, she could still bring down at least one of them. Nazoru remained in place with a serious look. The demon pressed him to decide what he would do. At that moment, Nazoru remembered something and changed one of his arms into a blob of slime. He offered it to her to eat. The demon asked what it was, but Nazoru only told her again to eat it. Instead, she bit off his whole arm along with the blob. She remarked that his taste was strange, unlike anything she had ever tasted before. Suddenly, her wounds began to close and heal. Nazoru realized that she had absorbed his magic essence. The demon then called him strange for choosing to help someone who had tried to kill him. She rose to her feet and asked what Nazoru was, not who. She could not tell if he was human or monster. All she could sense was something caught between the two. She glared at him for a moment and then tapped his shoulder. With a faint blush, Sarah the demon thanked him for saving her life. Nazoru blushed as well. The demon promised never to forget the debt. Suddenly a monster appeared and broke the moment. It looked similar to the horned rabbits from the woods, but this one had tough scales that acted as armor and sharper horn which resembled a sword. Libra explained that it was stronger than the fire boar. Without warning, the monster rushed forward and charged at the demon. Sarah barely dodged in time, avoiding the strike by only a small margin. But she did more than just evade. Blood dripped from her sharp nails, and it became clear that she had cut the monster's neck as it lunged. The monster's head fell to the ground and rolled away. Both Nazoru and Libra were shocked by what they had just seen. Sarah herself was surprised to realize that the cave they stood in was the monster's den. She considered it lucky, since the creature was a rare type. She pointed out that its horns could be turned into blades and its scales could be used as armor. Selling them would bring in good money. Still, she decided to leave it behind as a form of thanks, allowing the others to do what they wished with the rest. She finally revealed her full name, Sarah Douglas, before turning to leave. Nazoru looked at her once more and felt unsure. Before she departed, Sarah glanced back at the monster's head, and then at Nazoru, while Nazoru introduced himself completely and gave his thanks for everything. Soon after, the system confirmed that the monster Sarah had slain could be consumed. Nazoru thought about what to do. He remembered her words about the horns and scales being valuable and how they needed money for their journey. Libra said she would be fine either way, but reminded him that they only had a small amount of money left. If she had to choose, it was better for Nazoru to consume it. She explained that this rare horned rabbit might never appear again. Since Nazoru carried the Demon Eater ability, she believed he needed to eat as many kinds of monsters as possible to gain many different powers. Nazoru agreed with her reasoning. Libra wished for him to reach hundreds of thousands of abilities one day, so Nazoru ate the monster right away. The system confirmed that he had consumed the essence of the rare horned rabbit, yet a warning followed. Nazoru had already reached the limit of abilities he could hold. The system told him he had to discard one. Both Nazoru and Libra were stunned, especially after their excitement in setting such a high goal. They had just realized that even this path had its limits. Nazoru had just discovered that he could only hold 3 abilities at the same time. Libra was surprised when she realized he could not simply eat without limit and gather endless powers. She then wanted to know which one he would give up. That was the problem he faced. He had recently gained the fire boar's power and the horned rabbit's power. That left the slime and the plant ability. Libra tried to think hard about which one should be removed. Nazoru then suggested letting go of the plant ability. Libra grew confused and wanted him to think more carefully about it. He began to wonder if she was right. He knew she had unpleasant memories connected to the cannibal plant. Still, Libra could not believe that was his reason and argued that the plant ability might still be useful one day. Nazoru explained that it was not his only reason. In all their battles, if he had not relied on the slime's power, he would have already died many times. For someone like him, he could never throw away such a reliable skill. Libra gave thanks to him for considering her as well. With his mind set, Nazoru told the system to remove the ability he had taken from the cannibal plant. Soon after, Nazoru used his new powers to change his form. A sword-shaped horn grew from his forehead and scales spread across his body. He kept leaping forward while Libra rode on his back. He thought they truly owed Sarah for leaving behind the rare horned rabbit. Thanks to that, they were finally able to put more distance from the capital. Libra, feeling guilty, apologized to him again for everything. Nazoru wondered if she meant her injury but simply told her not to worry. He reminded her that it would be best to treat it soon. For the moment, he thought they should find an inn along the way to rest. Libra apologized once more. Nazoru then slowed down from leaping like a rabbit. In front of them was a calm village. He decided they should ask for shelter there. Later, Inside a restaurant, Nazoru enjoyed a proper meal. He had never tasted food in this world that felt so good. It was his first real meal since arriving. Libra agreed that what he had eaten before could not even be called meals. She then stopped and stared at him in silence. Nazoru noticed her reaction, and she seemed to wonder if his ability, Demon Eater, worked only on fresh food and not on cooked ones. That thought made Nazoru realize he was eating meat that came from monsters. Libra explained it made sense, since his world had no magical beasts. Now that she mentioned it, he also noticed there was no system notice while eating cooked meat. He thought about it for a while and guessed that the fresher the meat was, the stronger the magic essence. Cooking might have lessened or removed it. He assumed the magic essence could act like a flavor or even a nutrient. Libra then asked how he managed to use the griffin's power. Nazoru admitted he was not fully sure but believed the griffin's magic essence had been so strong that traces of it still lingered even in its claw. Libra agreed that it sounded possible. In short, Nazoru had to defeat monsters and eat them quickly, just as he had done before. Nazoru accepted that but became more curious about how Libra could eat so much. She did not think much of it and ordered more food. A waitress came to their table and was glad to see them enjoying the meal, since the village did not get many visitors. She wondered if they were adventurers. Nazoru answered that it was something close to that. The girl then mentioned that they also ran an inn and offered them rooms to stay in. Just then, the town guard Pria stormed into the restaurant, complaining about another long and tiring patrol. He dropped into a seat like a ruler and demanded that alcohol be brought to him quickly, saying his throat was dry. Libra quietly signaled Nazoru not to pay too much attention to the guard. Soon the waitress placed a drink in front of him and reminded him that he was still on duty. Pria brushed off her concern and told her not to worry about it. While serving him, the girl noticed he was holding a wanted poster. It showed a notice about a strange creature, a humanoid slime, that the king and his people were searching for. After hearing this, Libra realized that Nazoru was now a wanted figure. She thought it was best to leave right away, and Nazoru agreed that staying any longer would be dangerous. Meanwhile, Pria gulped down his drink in one go and slammed the mug on the table, declaring how nothing compared to drinking while on duty. The waitress reminded him that he should take his job more seriously. She had heard he once held respect as a sheriff and even trained soldiers in the capital. Pria replied that those days were long gone and no longer meant anything to him. While Pria kept himself busy trying to charm the waitress, Libra took the chance to leave payment on the table and urged Nazoru to go. Nazoru nodded and walked past the guard's seat, but Pria noticed their movement. He stopped his flirting and studied them closely, questioning why they were in such a rush. He even invited them to join him for a drink. Nazoru was confused if the words were directed at them, but before he could react, Pria stood up, grabbed his shoulder, and claimed that the two of them looked far too suspicious in his eyes. He asked them what their business was in a small village like that. Nazoru answered nervously that they were only sightseeing. Pria seemed pleased and said they should enjoy the village at a slower pace instead of leaving too quickly. He then invited them to drink with him, but his attention shifted when he noticed Libra's chest. He asked her to join him, making her uneasy. Libra glanced at Nazoru, who quickly pulled Pria's arm and apologized, saying they were in a hurry. He held Libra close and guided her toward the exit. Pria apologized for troubling them, but his expression changed as he reached for the dagger on his back. When Nazoru touched the door handle, he paused because he heard the sound of a blade being drawn. He turned and saw Pria preparing to strike. The dagger moved on its own, stretching like a snake. Nazoru froze as it almost cut into his head. His ear was sliced, but he managed to shift his face into liquid by activating his slime powers. Even so, he admitted to himself that he was far from fine. Pria realized with shock that he had found the wanted slime man. A nearby waitress cried out in confusion, asking what was happening. Pria told her that the man she was serving was none other than the slime man on the wanted list. Seeing Nazoru's liquid face, the others finally understood his identity but still wondered why someone like him had entered their quiet village. Pria said that it did not matter. He pulled back his snake-like dagger and explained that he had only been testing him since he looked suspicious. He pointed out that no one would normally claim to be sightseeing while barefoot. By releasing just a hint of killing intent, he confirmed that his target had walked right into it. He added that there was no way he could allow someone like that to escape. The waitress complained about him drawing a weapon in such a public place, but the guard told her to be silent. When Nazoru saw them arguing, he took the chance to use his horned rabbit powers and pulled Libra away. Pria felt confused because he saw the one called the Slime Man using the abilities of a horned rabbit. Libra felt relieved that Nazoru had gained this power. With it, Nazoru believed they now had a real chance to escape, but at that moment, the snake dagger chased after them and nearly struck. They moved aside just in time, yet the dagger curved and cut into Nazoru's leg. Pain rushed through him as he stumbled to the ground with Libra falling beside him. His first thought was about Libra's safety. She managed to stay unharmed, but Nazoru realized his own wound was partly shielded by the scales that covered him. Libra noticed this and felt relief, but her relief faded quickly when she saw Pria already closing the distance. Pria looked at Nazoru with sharp eyes and judged that he was neither beast nor demon. In the end, he decided that Nazoru was an otherworlder. Nazoru felt shocked. He could not believe a drunk guard had such sharp instincts. He heard that this same guard had been a military instructor in the capital. Now that Nazoru had drawn this dangerous man, he knew he could not run away easily. He told Libra to hide somewhere safe, then ran toward the guard. Pria watched as Nazoru attacked with his horn that looked like a sharp sword. The guard moved aside and dodged. Nazoru was surprised. Pria smiled and struck his back. Nazoru hit the hard ground and Pria followed with a wild swing that sent him toward the village fence. Nazoru managed to block most of the blow because his arms were covered in scales. He tried to catch his breath and worried when he saw how damaged his scales were from a single strike. Pria then spoke about why the king had put a bounty on an otherworlder. Nazoru learned that the term otherworlder meant someone with power stronger than the locals. Pria said that idea was insane to him. He said he had nothing, not even a proper home. Still, he threw himself into the world and worked like his life depended on it. He wanted to change his life. Nazoru listened to the man's angry words. Pria said his hard work had paid off and he had gained a good position. Then others had stolen it from him. He could not believe people who did not work hard had taken everything. He said he hated otherworlders. Seeing his angry face gave Nazoru chills. Pria claimed the kingdom favored people like Nazoru and spoiled even weak others with fine lives. He said people like him were ignored. He swore to change that by taking Nazoru's head and bringing it back to the capital as a trophy. Then he would train other otherworlder children and make them suffer worse than he had. That, he said, would be his revenge. Nazoru grew worried. He thought of the kids at the orphanage he had left behind. Knowing that, he became furious and gritted his teeth. He dared Pria to touch those children. He vowed he would not let that happen. He shouted that he would not let anyone touch them. He charged toward the guard with fierce determination. Pria noted his surprising show of spirit. The guard tried to dodge, but in that moment his cheek was torn off by Nazoru's bite. Nazoru did not stop. He swung his claws and cut deep into the guard's chest, breaking through the armor. Pria gripped his dagger and forced distance between them as the weapon extended and pushed Nazoru back. At the same time, Nazoru raised his left arm to block, already expecting the strike. He dodged quickly as another attack followed. Strangely, he felt his body move more freely in the fight, almost as if battle came naturally to him. The dagger continued its unrelenting assault. Pria acknowledged Nazoru's strength, saying he was stronger than expected, but added that courage alone would not be enough. In that instant, moves and tactics flowed into Nazoru's mind, as if his body carried hidden knowledge. He wondered if this came from the Demon Eater ability. As he attacked, Pria mocked him for only defending. Nazoru admitted in his thoughts that she was right. He began mixing his slime powers with the form of the horned rabbit. Pria's eyes widened at the sight of the two shapes fusing into one. Yet Nazoru was not finished. He shifted the sword-like horn from his forehead into his right arm, transforming into something like a one-clawed beast. Pria grew convinced that Nazoru was truly an otherworlder. Though he called him unnatural, he still pressed on, determined to take his head. Nazoru kept dodging the dagger's extending strikes. Pria taunted him again, asking why he was only running. He swore that no matter what shape Nazoru took, he would never let him draw near. Nazoru then saw an opening and extended his right arm. The guard was caught off guard by the sudden reach. He was shocked to see Nazoru's arm stretch, yet he claimed it was too slow and knocked the horn aside. The slime arm splattered on the ground, but in that moment the sword horn slid from the slime near Pria's leg. The blade pierced through, breaking his armor and wounding him badly. Falling to the ground, Pria could not believe what had just happened. Nazoru declared the fight finished. With his blade pointed at the guard, he announced that Pria had lost. Yet Nazoru did not move to strike. Pria lay before him, urging him to end it quickly. At the sound of the word kill, Nazoru froze. His body trembled as he asked himself if he could truly take another human's life so easily. Nazoru wondered if he should really kill a human. He saw no reason to kill one, not even a town guard like Pria. He told the hurt guard that he would not take his life. He ordered the guard to forget the day, and to act as if Nazoru and his men had never come to the town. Then Nazoru walked away. Pria laughed and called him naive. He guessed it was because Nazoru had not cut off his head. Pria said he did not need the head to use the guard. He added that any secret about Nazoru would be enough. He planned to tell the king and win praise for it. He pictured himself returning as the military instructor in the royal capital. Pria remembered how Nazoru had kept him from touching people in the capital. He thought Nazoru had friends there he protected. Pria promised to train those friends until they suffered and wished they were dead. Nazoru heard the threat and felt anger. He pointed his blade at Pria's face, but his hands still trembled. The guard said the threat would not work on him. Nazoru thought about everyone as he breathed hard. His hands shook. The idea of killing to protect them flashed through his mind, but he tried to deny it. He told himself there were other ways and that killing was not needed. He closed his eyes in nervousness, and then something took control of him. When he came back to himself, his eyes widened. Pria lay on the ground dead with his head away from his neck. The sight shocked him and filled him with disgust. He could not hold it back and began to vomit. Rain started to fall, cold and steady. Nazoru asked himself what he had just done. While he kept vomiting, Libra appeared and walked up to him. She checked if he was all right. He glared and said he had not had a choice. He had done what he thought he must do for himself and for everyone else. Libra knelt and wrapped him in a warm hug. She promised she would follow him no matter what he did from then on. Nazoru wondered if this was the path he had chosen. Under the heavy rain, he let out a long scream to release his fears and anger. Nazoru cried under the heavy rain, yet in his heart he knew the path he had to take. He kept walking forward for the sake of everyone, knowing there was no turning back. Takashi had placed his trust in him to protect and save the people, and for that trust, he would not hesitate to sacrifice. Pain, suffering, and even regret would not stop him. He was ready to face and endure everything in his way. In that moment, he noticed Libra trembling while holding on to him. The sight caught him off guard, but he embraced her in return. He felt grateful for her and knew she had chosen to stay with him despite everything. That loyalty touched him deeply. He held her shoulders and promised to grow stronger, stronger than ever before so he could protect her no matter what. That promise to him was unshakable. Since he still knew little about this world, he believed it would help if she taught him more as they moved forward together. Libra answered with certainty, saying she would always remain by his side. Her feelings had never changed since the day he saved her, and Nazoru felt relief hearing those words. For now, Libra suggested that they should leave the village quickly before more trouble arrived. 2 days later, an investigator from the capital reached the village. The waitress at the inn confirmed that the wanted man had been there with an elf girl. She even presented a simple drawing of Nazoru. The investigator compared it and confirmed it matched the man he had once seen in the underground prison. It turned out to be the same guard from before. The waitress thought about how difficult it must have been for royal guards to travel all the way to their small village. The guard explained that checking the scene of crimes was a necessary duty. The guard called over someone named Kano who had been relaxing with some drinks. He asked her to help with the questioning. Kano complained at first, saying that such work should be left to a grunt. She was a tracker and also an otherworlder. She liked to play around by telling him to call her Kanonako instead of Kano in a playful way. She began to wonder if the suspect was really a slime man. From the corpse she had examined, the wounds on Pria's neck and chest looked like the work of a horned rabbit. The guard praised her sharp eye and reasoned that the suspect might be able to change shape into a horned rabbit. A few days earlier, they had failed to catch a demon in the same area. Kano got to her feet and eagerly suggested they capture their target this time. She stepped on a nearby lizard and promised not to let their quarry escape again. That night, Nazoru and Libra camped in the forest. Nazoru remembered that past the trees there was another town. Libra believed they could take a short rest once they reached it. She thought they would be out of the forest by the next day. Then, Nazoru felt something moving nearby. A giant spider monster appeared without warning. Nazoru quickly used his horned rabbit powers and told Libra to stay back. He jumped aside to dodge the sudden strike, then shifted into the form of a flaming boar. With a burning punch, he struck the spider and reduced it to ash. Libra admired how strong he was, amazed that he defeated the monster in a single blow. She also noticed how well his fighting skills matched his powers. Nazoru accepted her words but explained that he had sensed something strange about the monster. Just then, Kano appeared behind them and called Nazoru a traitor from another world. Both of them were shocked. Libra screamed in surprise while Nazoru calmly shifted back into his horned rabbit form and tried to strike Kano, who had appeared so suddenly. Kano dodged with ease and spoke about how dirty Nazoru's hands were. Nazoru tried to retreat, but Kano once again appeared behind him. She teased that it was truly wicked for him to raise his hand against a girl he had just met. She said that someone like him deserved to be torn apart. For now, she only wanted to make a small move. She pushed Nazoru away, but he quickly regained balance by gripping the ground tightly with his bare hands. He wondered who this strange girl was and thought she might be an envoy sent by the king. Kano then declared that her marking was complete and that Nazoru could no longer escape from her. Nazoru did not care if he could not run away. He decided to give everything he had. He gathered all his powers. His head changed, showing both the fire boar and the horned rabbit features. His arms became covered with the horned rabbit scales. Using his slime powers, he shifted the sword-shaped horn into his right hand. He swung at Kano but missed. She continued dodging with ease and even remarked on how he could also turn into a fire boar. Nazoru kept attacking, but confusion grew inside him as Kano avoided every strike so easily. He then decided to change his approach. Using his slime powers, he enlarged his left hand and slammed it down at Kano. To his surprise, Kano managed to slip away at the last moment. She leapt into the air and questioned if that was the full extent of Nazoru's power. She then claimed that she was stronger. From the inside of her jacket, sharp metal shards burst out and she sent them flying straight at him. Nazoru was pierced many times until he looked like a cactus covered with spikes. Libra cried out in worry for him. Nazoru knelt on the ground and tried to understand the attack he had just seen. He could not see it at all, but his core stayed intact. Still, he realized it was too risky to keep fighting Kano in that way. He turned his focus to Libra and checked if her ankle had healed. She said she was fine, so Nazoru decided to face the enemy alone and buy her more time. He told her to move forward without him and promised they would meet again later. Without hesitation, Libra left on her own while Kano only watched her walk away. Nazoru then set his blade aflame to draw Kano's attention, realizing in the end that she aimed only for his neck. Kano spoke about how brave he was. Nazoru felt sure he had managed to land a cut on her, yet her true strength remained unknown. He knew he had to create an opening and escape, so he quickly moved to the side. Kano mocked his effort, reminding him that escape from her was impossible. She then threw a knife that struck him right away. Nazoru noticed how she tossed the blade so casually, yet her aim was perfect. He thought that if he kept his scales strong to protect his core and relied on his legs, he might still be able to outrun her. More knives suddenly came from every direction. Nazoru did his best to dodge them all. As he watched their flight, he realized they were the homing kind, which made the ability far worse than he had imagined. He forced himself not to panic and tried to stay calm. He expected an attack from his left, but Kano appeared on his right instead. The surprise made Nazoru panic for a moment, and he quickly pulled back to create distance. He found her movements unsettling. To fight back, he unleashed his flames, setting both Kano and the surrounding trees on fire. The spreading blaze caused Kano to panic as the forest burned around her. While running, Nazoru realized his attacks only scratched the enemy, while Kano's strikes always landed. He thought about what was happening and what he should do. As he looked around, he saw a spider monster, the same kind he had defeated before. He believed it could help him, so he devoured it. At the same time, Kano put out the flames and complained that someone weak like Nazoru was only wasting her time. She could no longer see him, but since she had not touched him yet, she knew she would not have trouble finding him again. She sharpened her focus and spotted Nazoru in the distance. Her knives were not reliable, so she decided to change that. She dragged her tongue across one blade, coating it until the tip. The knife then hardened, grew larger, and took on a new form with veins pulsing along its surface. With this, Kano believed the hunt would soon be over. She wished she could admire the knife later, then casually threw it. The blade tore through the trees in a straight path. Nazoru was too slow to escape and the knife pierced his chest. Blood sprayed from his body as he collapsed to the ground. Kano skipped forward happily after ending his life. She stood over his lifeless body, thinking she had wanted to break him apart more, but the fight ended too quickly. It did not matter since she could still take his head as proof. She swung the knife through his neck and raised his severed head like a trophy. Her mission was complete, and in the end, she had won. Outside the forest, Libra waited anxiously for Nazoru. She hoped he was safe. Since he still had not come out even when morning arrived, she feared that something bad had happened. Yet she forced herself not to think that way. Someone suddenly tapped her shoulder and she screamed in shock. Nazoru, also startled, shouted as well. Relief filled Libra when she saw it was him. She had been worried that the otherworlder had taken him. Nazoru was also relieved that she was safe, but he had just realized that the girl he fought was indeed another otherworlder. Libra confirmed this but said she was even more thankful to see him unharmed. She assumed he had won the fight. Nazoru admitted it was not exactly like that. He explained that he only pretended to be a corpse. Libra grew confused, so he reminded her of what she had seen earlier. He had not been able to land a hit on his enemy. The difference in their strength was too large, so his only choice was to try to escape. But with her tracking skills, running away had been nearly impossible. Because of this, he had gone after a spider monster. Libra realized he meant the false star spider. She recalled how those creatures used silk threads to scout and even relied on their shed shells as decoys. That memory helped her understand what Nazoru had done. He admitted he did not know much about the spider but reminded her that when he once defeated one, the system had given a prompt. Later he discovered that it was only a shed shell. That gave him an idea. If the shell could pass as a real body, then maybe he could use the same trick against his enemy. His plan worked and the otherworlder fell for the false body and left. Libra thought it was amazing that he could use such a clever method during a desperate moment. But Nazoru warned her that the disguise's limits were unclear and he had no idea how long it would fool the enemy. Libra then suggested they leave the forest and rest in the nearby town, since he must have been tired already. Nazoru was still shaken after the battle. He thought his current self needed to eat more in order to grow stronger. The fight that had just ended showed him how weak he really was, and he felt he could not just sit around doing nothing. Libra suggested that they should focus on hunting monsters. Even if Nazoru was tired, he promised himself that he would at least try to help her. Before that, Libra mentioned that he should change his clothes. If he continued looking the way he did, people would likely target him again. She advised him to get proper clothes and shoes. Nazoru, feeling embarrassed, agreed. Libra told him to wait outside the town gates while she went inside to buy what he needed. While waiting, Nazoru sighed to himself. He could not believe how large the gap was between him and the other Otherworlder. Since he had eaten the false star spider, he had lost the powers of the fire boar. Strength depended on how someone used their abilities, but he felt weaker overall. His thoughts were suddenly broken when a small squirrel fell from the tree he leaned against. He was startled at first, but relieved to see it was only a harmless squirrel. Not long after, Libra returned carrying clothes she had chosen for him. She hoped he would be satisfied with them. Nazoru thought they looked good and thanked her. He also noticed her new outfit and said it suited her well. Libra felt happy to hear that and admitted her old clothes were already worn out. As she looked through her bag, she remembered something and pulled out a monster subjugation request from the guild. Nazoru felt unsure and asked what he would actually do in a monster subjugation. Libra explained that he could grow stronger while also earning money. Nazoru expected nothing less from her and gave his thanks. She then revealed there was more to it. She gathered several requests, ranging from goblin exterminations to dragon hunts. To Nazoru, the papers looked like wanted posters. He also noticed the different colors of the sheets and wondered if they had a meaning. Libra confirmed they did, saying the guild ranked quests with marks. The deeper the color, the harder the task and the greater the reward. Black meant it was S rank or even higher. Nazoru realized that taking on a dragon at his level would mean certain death. He could hardly keep up with the girls he had faced earlier, so he understood that his greatest weakness right now was speed. Libra suggested hunting an Elikichu, a monster known for speed and electric powers. It was marked as C rank, which she said fit Nazoru's current ability. Nazoru refused, believing that moving too slowly would not help him improve. He chose a different target instead. Libra pointed out a B rank request for a quick wrap, a monster famous for explosive bursts of speed and sharp vision. Among B rank creatures, it was the fastest of all. Nazoru argued that this was exactly why he needed to fight it. Since he was determined, Libra finally agreed. Not long after, they arrived at a massive cave that served as the quick wrap's lair. Nazoru felt shaken but knew it was the challenge he had chosen. As they entered, the silence inside felt strange. Crystals glowed faintly along the walls. Libra explained that the crystals near the entrance were of low purity, but deeper inside they could find ones of higher purity and greater value. Reports said that the quick wrap had claimed the deeper zone as its nest, which forced miners to abandon their work and issue the request. The two came across the body of a monster lying on the ground. The system confirmed it as a target for consumption and asked if Nazoru would consume it. Libra identified the corpse as that of a goblin. Nazoru noticed it had only recently died, which meant someone else had entered the cave before them. Nazoru agreed to move on. They walked deeper inside and kept finding more goblin bodies. Libra observed that whoever went in first must have been very skilled. Even if the monsters were only goblins, each one had been killed with a single strike. From the wounds, she assumed the killer was a strong archer. She stopped talking soon after, since the system kept sending messages whenever they came across another corpse. Nazoru apologized for the constant noise and wished there was a mute button. To his surprise, the system confirmed that it had just activated one. Nazoru could hardly believe such an option even existed, since they had no idea what the unknown person was aiming for. Nazoru suggested reaching the quick wrap before them to claim the kill. Libra agreed, but warned they had to stay cautious. If the person was not hiding under the guild's name, then they might be truly dangerous. Nazoru accepted her warning. Nazoru suddenly stopped walking and Libra bumped into his back. In front of them stretched a massive pit that opened up to the sky with water falling down on both sides. The hole dropped far below the surface, so deep that Nazoru could not see the bottom. He found the place breathtaking. Libra explained that the pit led to the deeper zone of the cave. At that moment, they spotted someone fighting goblins alone. A man was coldly shooting arrows at close range, taking down the monsters one after another. Libra realized this must be the archer who had been leaving the trail of bodies. The man noticed them, clicked his tongue in frustration, then lifted his bow. He aimed and released an arrow straight at Nazoru. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 20. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.